afternoon, everyone, and welcome here physically in Vilnius. Hello, everyone who are joining us from all over the world. Today, we're here welcoming you at Teso Talks, event about marketing hacks for global growth. My name is Gilles. I'm a marketing and communication manager at Nexa.io and a co-founder of AlterState. And today, I'm going to guide you through this wonderful evening where we're going to have some really bright minds and great marketing growth hacks. But before we start, let me share with you why we are all here. This event was powered by TesoNet, and as they say, being geeky about meaningful tech, TesoNet is home to several knowledge-sharing initiatives uniting professionals focused on driving growth and innovation in different fields. And Teso Talks is a series, you might have seen that already before, happening again, and it's open for everyone, where we invite tech masterminds, creative strategists, and serial entrepreneurs to share their insights on the key issues and ideas that matter to the startup world right now. And today we're here all about global scale. And before I invite our keynote speaker, Gilles, who is going to open up our event, I would like actually to inform you and introduce that we do have Slido that will help to connect the physical and virtual audience and us with the speakers and ask all the questions you want to ask. Your time is now, and if we can go to the next slide, actually, or if you go towards the Slido, to the website and enter the keywords, hashtag TesoTalks, you will be able to ask questions for our speakers and participants. And we will be taking it during the conversation in the panel discussion and also after the keynote speech. But I guess let's wait no more and kick off our event with our keynote speaker, Gilles, who is a founder and growth strategist at Ablaze Growth Studio. And he's an independent growth strategist who designs, builds, and scales growth machines for startups, new ventures, and personal brands. And I think I could keep going and going through his history and records where he's been working, but he's just, the startup market is Gilles' natural habitat. And I just would like to invite him actually to introduce himself and kick off his presentation about scaling beyond borders. Here you go.
Is this on? Is this on? Yeah. So how do I do the slides? Like this? Up and down. So yeah, I'm not gonna formally introduce myself. Let this presentation or this keynote be my introduction. So scaling beyond borders, let's get right into it because I might run out of time, but we'll see how we handle that once we get there. So scaling is about becoming really big. So what does it take for a company to become really big? You have to do two things. You have to make something that a lot of people want to have, and you need to reach and serve all of those people. All of those people, you would have to build hair salons all across the world. And you would probably have to build a hair salon every 10 kilometers on planet Earth, because nobody travels more than 10 kilometers to get a haircut. And in areas where there's a lot of population, you probably even need to build more hair salons, because as a hairdressing company, you employ hairdressers and you pay them by the hour. Let's say they do 2 haircuts an hour. If they have an 8-hour workday, that means you will be able to sell 16 haircuts per day per hairdresser that you employ. So if you have one hair salon and there's 5 hairdressers working in it, that means that you can sell 90 haircuts per day. So if the local demand in your market is bigger, you will probably lose some of those customers to competitors. You also don't have really great profit margins. You only have like 5 or 10% of what you get from customers is profit, so you don't have enough capital to build all of those locations. Long story short, it's very hard to scale globally, which is also why there is no multinational hairdressing company. So now you have a second idea. Let's say you want to build an app that teaches English to Chinese speakers. Now you also make something that a lot of people could use. There's about 1.5 billion Chinese speakers on the planet. And the good thing is, so you don't have to build schools all across the world. You don't have to hire a truckload of teachers to teach all of these Chinese speaker English. You can just build an app and everyone who has a device with an internet connection can now access your product. So you don't have any physical constraints anymore, so your scaling potential is a lot bigger. Software also doesn't have variable costs. Like if 10 people use your app or 10,000 makes actually little difference. Obviously, you need the server to scale along with it, so the application stays online. But you don't. So when you do a hairdresser, you have to pay per haircut that you deliver. But in terms of a software application, you don't pay per extra customer. You don't pay per customer that you serve. So it's a lot more scalable. Your profit margins are a lot higher. So making something a lot of people want is about demand. And to generate demand, you first need to make the product, obviously. And then you also need to market your product, because if you make an app that teaches Chinese to English people, that teaches English to Chinese people, you can make the app, but if nobody knows about it, nobody can actually want it. Marketing is literally creating markets. And so to scale, you have to be able to scale demand and supply accordingly in harmony with one another. Say you sell t-shirts here in a store in Vilnius. You cannot really scale demand because your demand is always going to be limited to the market that is of people living nearby your store. So today I am in Vilnius. I effectively enter your market by being in Vilnius. I can go to your store and buy t-shirts. But as soon as I leave for Belgium again, I effectively leave your market. So your market is only your demand, your ability to scale demand is always going to be limited to the people living around your store or being around your store. Now, you can solve this demand scale problem by moving your store online, by doing e-commerce. You build a website, you put all of your nice t-shirts on there, and now everyone with an internet connection can potentially buy your t-shirts as long as you ship to their location. So let's say you ship to every location in the world. Now you can now your market, making something a lot of people want, now you can potentially sell to 4 or 5 billion people. The thing is, let's say you pull that off. Let's say everybody wants your t-shirts, your demand, you can now scale your demand, but you can still not scale the supply accordingly, because to sell 4 billion t-shirts, you also need to make 4 billion t-shirts, and each t-shirt that you produce and ship to the location where the customer is, you need to, it incurs a cost and it takes time. It takes probably, you don't have the infrastructure, it probably takes too much money and time to actually reach and serve all the customers that want your t-shirt. And eventually you get software. So software creates user experiences that are infinitely reproducible at a near zero cost per customer. So everyone who's on the internet can use your application with a couple of asterisks in terms of scaling supply. But lesson number one here is the internet doesn't have borders as effectively. And the more, you can scale demand and supply accordingly to how much demand you have. And in terms of your startup, the more internet native your startup is, so the more it is a digital product that is on the internet and doesn't have any ties to the physical world, the more infinitely scalable, the more inherently scalable it's going to be. So the next question is, how big can you actually get? What is the upper ceiling? What is the upper ceiling for you to scale? So if you've ever pitched to investors, you know that total addressable market is, those are all the people who could theoretically buy your products. That is, it expresses the revenue potential of your products if you reach 100% market share. And in doing that, it basically ignores all of the borders that you have. So it ignores geography, it ignores culture, language, legal regulation, and competition, and so on. If you do account for those borders, you get SAM, or serviceable addressable markets. This is the part of your total addressable market that you can actually serve with the product in your current configuration. So as we've seen just now, for example, let's say I'm McDonald's. If I'm McDonald's, my serviceable addressable market is going to be restricted to the markets where I actually have a restaurant. I cannot serve anyone outside in locations where I don't have a restaurant. If I'm Facebook, I can potentially serve the entire world. I don't have any borders. I do have borders. That's my next point. But I don't have geographical borders. I don't have geographical constraints. So there are still borders on the internet that restrict your market that you can serve from the get-go. So the most obvious one is language. If your product is not available in the language that your customers speak, well, they cannot use your product. Even if a market does understand the language, like English, they may still prefer a competing product that is in their native language, for example, in Lithuanian or in Russian or in Polish. And I learned this basically on the very first day that I ever worked for a startup. So my first job was at a CRM startup, and we made a CRM for small businesses. And the very first day of the job, the founder told me to analyze our biggest competitor and learn everything about them. And in that space, that was Pipedrive. And Pipedrive, you might know the company, because they're from nearby Estonia. So I went to check their landing pages, their ads, their content, everything they were doing. And one thing that struck me immediately was that their blog was in English and in Portuguese. So it turned out that every small business in Brazil uses Pipedrive. And that was very striking because, I don't know if you know this, but the SaaS sales space on the internet, so all of these SaaS companies that sell sales tools, they're competing very hard for all the search positions in Google. So it's a highly competitive space. It's very hard to get on the first page of Google and capture tons of traffic for topics that are related to sales. But Pipedrive, by just making their product available in Portuguese and translating their content in Portuguese, were capturing massive amounts of potential customers that were searching in Portuguese. There's also a Facebook story about this. So when Facebook launched in 2004, they were available in English. And according to people that were on the growth team around 2010, no, actually earlier, the biggest move that made Facebook propel to 1 billion customers was to internationalize Facebook. They made it available in Arabic, German, Spanish, French, all the languages of the world, and that was basically the biggest scaling move that they ever did. The second border that is on the that you still have on the internet is something I call network. This is a little bit more ambiguous, so I'll have to give some more examples. We'll start with Facebook again. So when Facebook launched in 2004, you needed a Harvard email address to sign up for Facebook. The reason for this is Facebook is a social network, so Facebook is only as valuable to its users as there are people on the network that are interesting to you. So if Facebook would have launched across all of the universities in the US at once, you would get a person from Harvard, one from Yale, one from Stanford, one from a random university in Missouri. All these people don't really know each other, so they have no interest in each other, so you don't make any friends, your newsfeed is empty and irrelevant, there's no engagement, and the platform dies. What they did instead is they launched into Harvard, very dense social circle, and then they expanded to niches with overlapping social circles, nearby universities, and we know the rest of the story. That way you localize local network effect, you maximize local network effects, people share, engage, they bring their friends, eventually they bring their other friends outside of university, they bring their parents, they bring their parents, and now Facebook is only used by white people, by old white people, and everyone else is on Instagram and TikTok because the world moves around. The network thing is mostly relevant for business models that have some kind of that are some kind of platform matching demand and supply. So on Facebook, you match social circles with each other. Another example is Uber. Uber's serviceable addressable market is restricted to the areas where it has enough drivers to meet the demand for rides. If I'm in an area where there's not enough drivers for Uber, I have to wait too long, the price gets too high, and I have a bad user experience, and I bail. There's a couple of other examples. It can also be content-wise. Spotify, for example, only started growing in Latin America once they onboarded a lot of Latino artists. You can also have, for example, think about food delivery apps. If you want to service a market as a food delivery app, for example, here in Vilnius, you need to first make sure that you have a lot of restaurants on there so that people can actually choose and get mouth-watering if they start mouth-watering if they open your app. If you are a crypto exchange or any exchange where you can buy social assets, your serviceable addressable market expands the more coins or assets you make available that people can trade. So the point here is also that's mostly for platforms that need to match some kind of supply and demand in a market. If you have software that is mostly utility, so you just help the user do something, like actually a CRM, this is one less major border that you have to account for. That being said, you can also think of network as just people that locally help deliver the value proposition. What I mean by that is if you want to expand to a Polish, Russian, or Turkish market, you may need Turkish salespeople or Turkish customer support because it's just easier that way, so people have somebody to talk to. It's less fundamental though. So the last border I want to talk about is, well, legal. I'm not going to cover this too much in depth because I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a lot of practical legal experience, but I think it's pretty obvious. Different countries have different laws. For example, Uber had to spend billions of dollars in lawsuits to be able to keep on operating. And because they were in a legislative gray zone, kind of. Same thing is true for a lot of cryptocurrency apps today. Nobody really knows what to do with them. So if you're a crypto company these days, you have to have different entities in different countries just to be able to operate. And you have, you basically are at risk of being outlawed all the time. There's probably a lot of other borders in place here as well. So these are more like conceptual borders that keep your product value from a certain market of customers. So the question you should ask yourself here is, if you want to increase your market potential, how can you make your product value available to more users? That's basically the point. And so after you've expanded your markets, now it's time to conquer the market, right? So how do you do that? You don't attack it all at once. You take it niche by niche. So your market is basically divided into all of these communities. So think in terms, on the internet, think in terms of communities, not in terms of countries. And these are basically like groups of people, homogeneous groups of people that have the same, that they have a specific set of goals, of problems, and of jobs to be done. And so they want to achieve different purposes with your product. And if you want to take the entire market, you have to eventually localize your product and your marketing to each niche. What do I mean by localize? We'll get to examples in a bit, but what I mean by localize is you need to adapt the product to the audience of each community so they can achieve with your product what they find important. Again, I will get to examples in a bit. And you also need to signal this. Wait, I'll give some examples now because it's probably too ambiguous right now. Let's say you're Revolut. Revolut started by targeting expats in the UK because expats in the UK, they couldn't open bank accounts because to open a bank account in the UK, you needed a UK street address. But to rent an apartment in the UK, you needed a UK bank account. So they entered the market in this one niche of expats, and then they expanded to digital nomads, people who traveled the world, spent and received multiple currencies, and then they basically saved them from all of these hidden conversion fees, and all the way down to traditional bank holders to today. And today they're also trying to appeal to people who want to trade cryptocurrency. So they start in one niche and they expand to all of the other niches. Is kind of the point. So in which niche do you start? So something I forget to mention here. So basically you expand the product scope so to appeal to these other niches, and then you also need to signal the value proposition to these niches. And I'm going to skip forward a little bit quickly to this example of Revolut. So Revolut, persona expats, the value proposition is open your account in seconds without street address. If you're an expat, if you're a digital nomad, spend, withdraw, get and send money anywhere in the world. If you're crypto curious, buy crypto from your phone with one click. It's all the same product, but it's a different emphasis. It's all localized to the communities they're trying to appeal to. So where do you start in a niche? You start from the niche where you have product market fit. So product market fit is kind of a buzzword. What exactly does product market fit mean? Product market fit is another way of saying retention. So to visualize your extent of product market fit, take a cohort of users. A cohort is a group of people that sign up for your product in the same version. So they have the same features, the same release of the product. And you're going to plot their activity rate on a graph in time. So on the x-axis, you see time since sign up. This can be days, this can be weeks. It depends on the goals of your product. Like Facebook focuses on daily active users. If you're Uber, you focus on weekly active users. So it depends on the product. And so you start from day 0 and you go to the right. On day 0, 100% of your users are going to be active users. And if you go to the right, the graph is going to slope down because no product has a 100% retention rate. People are going to leave. What's important is that your curve at a certain point flattens. So here, for the white one, it's at 45% more or less. The flattened curve represents the people that you have product market fit with. These are people that keep returning to your products. So that means that they get consistent value out of it. To give you a counterexample, the gray graph slopes all the way to 0 in the end. After 14 days, you lose all of your users. So if your product is the gray curve, don't think about scaling, because all of the users that are going to come to your product, you're going to lose them after 14 days. And you'll probably won't make enough money to survive. Because the longer people stay on your product, the more money your product is going to make. So if you have product market fit, how do you scale it? It's basically two things you can do. One is, how do I get more users like the ones I'm retaining? So those 45% right there, find more of those people to get them to come to your product. And the users that are churning, so the users that are leaving, how do you stop them from leaving? The first one is customer acquisition, the second one is product management. It's not as binary as I make it seem here, but that's kind of that's basically what it comes down to. So customer acquisition, so customer acquisition is you reach customers on channels where they are hanging out, and then you get them into your funnel, and the funnel leads to your product. So what are customer acquisition channels? Everywhere your customers hang out, where you can reach them. So your ideal customers, the customers you are attaining, these 45%, those people, where are they hanging out? So what social networks do they use? What apps do they use? What YouTube videos do they watch? What podcasts do they listen to? What newsletters are they subscribed to? What people do they follow on social media? All of that stuff, all of those things you can use to reach those people with a message. It's like an ad, content, cold email, a direct message, a tweet, whatever it is. By the way, so my last 10 slides are about scaling customer acquisition, which I'm not sure I will get to, but let's see. So you reach people with a targeted message that is adapted to what's important to them in places where you can find them. So they click through to your landing page. Then that's still a part of acquisition. They get to your landing page. On your landing page, you describe to them in language and terms that they understand, how their lives with your product is so much more awesome than life without their product. In such a way that they want to try your product, and they click sign up, they want to try your product, they get into the product for the very first time, which is the stage where that we call onboarding. And there you have to deliver on the promises that you made on your landing page. And so they want basically more of the product. So they see how they get value out of the product. They understand how the product works, all of that kind of stuff. So you can basically trigger ongoing engagement, which is retention, which, as we have seen, is product market fit. And then that ongoing retention is what you're going to monetize. So of all the business models on the internet online, you have SaaS, where you have subscription, where you charge for fixed usage every month. You can take commission on each transaction that happens on your platform, like on Uber or food delivery apps or crypto exchanges. And you have advertising, basically. And you also have freemium and that kind of stuff. But the point I want to make is the more retention you have, the more money you make, basically. The longer people stay in your product, the more transactions, the more money you make, the longer they... I've been subscribed to Netflix for 12 years. 12 times 10 per year is 120 euro per year. 10 years, they earned 1,200 euro to me. And the point of your funnel is, your funnel needs, if you want to scale your funnel, it needs to be profitable first. Profitable means the customers that come out on the right, so at the end of the funnel, they need to pay you more than you pay the channel to get them. So the first thing, so what does that mean? I'm already running out of time. Okay, I'll finish this quickly. So how much time do I have left? 5 minutes, okay. Acquisition channels cost money. So if you want to run ads, if you want to do content, all of that costs money. You acquire customers with those, and those customers, in terms of lifetime revenue, so how much they pay you, they have to pay you more than you pay on ads, on content, on sales. If they don't pay you more, you basically make money, lose money all the time. And if you then scale your funnel, so if you put way more money into ads, or you scale your content creation and all of that, you basically scale your losses. So if your funnel is not profitable, you first have to make sure that you first have to make sure that your funnel is profitable. How do you do that? You do a lot of experiments. So you try various acquisition channels, you try better landing pages, you target different audiences, you do a lot of A/B testing all across every stage of the funnel, so you can increase your conversion rates. And as soon as you make more money than you put in, so every euro you put into acquisition efforts needs to generate more. It's what we call return on investment. As soon as it's profitable, you can scale it. And now I have to figure out what is the best way to continue doing this. So the first question was, how do I get more users like the ones I've been retaining? The ones that have been churning, that's what we get here. So to stop users from churning, you need to understand why they are churning. So these are people that signed up for your product, but then they left. So try to understand why they left. The fact that they signed up in the first place means that their marketing appealed to them in some kind of way. They thought they had some kind of value to find in your product, they signed up for it, but then they didn't find it. So you didn't deliver on their expectations, which can be a case of either misaligned expectations, like your marketing is not clear enough, or your product fails to deliver on the value. And this can be in multiple ways. Your product can just be very confusing, or they didn't find the feature, or your onboarding was very confusing and they didn't know how to use it. They didn't know how to get the value that they signed up for. And a useful mental model to use here is the marginal user versus the power user. So if you have product market fit, at the center of your product market fit is the power user. The power user is like our ideal customer. They use all the features, they come back every day, they know exactly how to use it, they even use keyboard shortcuts and all that stuff. The marginal user is like more struggling. Like they're in there, but they don't completely understand everything what they're doing. They don't know how to use all of the features. They're probably just less aware of this type of product. Maybe they've never used a product like this before. And the point I want to make, so these are at the fringe of your product market fit. And if you focus on if you continue focusing on building the product for the power user, you're going to lose these marginal users. So the solution is to focus on the marginal user, because the power user is probably going to stay anyway. So there's more upside in focusing on the marginal user, and that way you can increase the scope of your product market fit. And the one story that basically taught me this idea is a guy who worked for the Facebook growth team, and he had friends and family asking him, why you keep adding all of these annoying types of notifications? And he asked them, but did you leave Facebook because of the annoying notifications? And none of them left Facebook. So the point is, these annoying notifications, they helped retaining marginal users, so they increased engagement for marginal users that weren't very active, and they didn't scare away the power users. So focus on the marginal user, and this you can apply this to onboarding, to your overall user experience. Try to build the product in the on the level of the lowest level of understanding of the people you're trying to sell it to. Like the power user is the type of user who's probably going to skip the onboarding sequence anyway. So make the onboarding sequence for the biggest fool who's going to sign up for your product. That way you expand the product scope, you make it more inclusive for your market niche. And if you do that, focusing on the marginal users, you will eventually almost automatically scale into those other niches. So I have another story about sales CRM that I worked for. We had a lot of commercial real estate agents signing up for our sales CRM. It was a B2B sales CRM, so that means it was structured according to first had accounts. Every account had contacts. So accounts were companies you were trying to sell to. Every account had contacts you were actually talking to. And we had commercial real estate agents using this. And for them, it's kind of awkward because they sell houses to consumers. So the way they were using it, it was like if they were selling it to me, the account name was Gilles, and the account only had one contact, which was also Gilles, so it was completely superfluous. So this is an example of a marginal user, and what we did to fix that, or to focus on them, is we added a feature where you could delete basically the upper layer, so you can only use it for contacts, so you can also use it to sell to consumers. And then we also started marketing to real estate agents. It has a real estate CRM. And this brings me to how do you pick other niches? First, pick the niche that is closest to you, so that has an overlap with the niche that you have product market fit in, because it's probably going to be the easiest and the least costly to try and appeal to these users as well. What is also important is volume. How many people are in the niche, so how many people can you sell to? The downside of a lot of volume, the higher the volume, usually also the more competition because there's more revenue potential. And this brings me then to the Revolut slides, which is also an example of scaling into other niches. They focused on one user first, and then they expanded their product scope to focus on all of these other users. And if you today go to Revolut.com, on the homepage, like the catch-all page, which is meant for all of the audiences, you see all of these features that were originally basically all built for these individual users. And one, like, you're probably going to sign up for Revolut for one of these reasons. Because you're a digital nomad and you don't want conversion fees, because you want cashbacks, because you're crypto curious, of all of these things. And so I'm trying to figure out how to finish this. So this is another good example of Intercom. I don't know if you know what Intercom is. Live chat widget. And this is their landing page structure. So they have landing pages that explain their product focused on each of these things. So they're one category, features. So they explain Intercom through as a live chat solution, as an account-based marketing solution, as chatbots, as help center, customer analytics. And then they focus on use cases. So what can you use it for in a more like general kind of way? Industries, company size, competition. These are basically all niches, all of them. And each one of them is another inspiration for, it's basically the source for another set of ads, another set of content, another set of marketing campaigns in general. Also other channels. For example, here on Revolut, expats, you're going to target in Facebook communities or Discord communities, people where expats talk to each other. Digital nomads, you're going to target, again, in Discord groups, but also at local meetups and that kind of stuff. Bank account holders, probably Facebook ads. Credit card spenders, Instagram ads. Crypto curious people, Twitter ads, and Discord groups. So their audiences are in different places, and you talk to them in a different way. So you first adapt the product to serve their needs, to cater to their needs, to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And then you also articulate your marketing to it, and you split your marketing to localize to each one of these. So this is the last slide I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to show you what the rest of the slides were, and then you can ask for the slides, because actually, potentially, the later slides are actually the coolest ones, obviously. So if you are tailoring your message to each of these audiences, you have to tailor them. You have to tailor it to how aware and in need those audiences are of your product. So, and this is what I call the ladder of product awareness. So if you start at the top, so the higher on the ladder, the more you have to focus on what makes your product awesome and on the features and benefits that people get from them. And the lower on the ladder, the more you have to focus on explaining why the problem they have is worth solving. So a couple of examples. Step number 1 is Apple. Everyone, and that's basically when you made it. Everyone knows you're the best. That's Apple to Apple fanboys. Step number 2 is people who want to buy an Android phone and are not sure what brand to go for. So they know they want to buy an Android phone, but they don't know if they want Samsung or OnePlus or Huawei or what. Huawei is not Android anymore. But number 3 is somebody who is concerned. So they're aware solutions exist, but aren't sufficiently motivated to solve the problem. This is someone who is concerned about the climate impact of their combustion engine car, but they're not sure they want to buy a Tesla yet. So your marketing should focus on the Tesla. This is the best solution. This is what you should buy. Step number 4 is Dropbox in the age of USB sticks. So people have problems with USB sticks, but they're not aware of it, that they have problems about, they're not aware that a cloud storage solution is actually superior. And so this has implication, if you're on step 5, you're basically lost. If they're not experiencing the problem that your product solves, then you have bigger fish to fry. But the point is, so this is the inspiration of the level of understanding you should tailor your message to, and it also tailors to your acquisition channels. Because if you're on step 2, for example, when people are motivated to buy a solution or to try a solution, they're going to proactively search for it. So they're going to search in Google, they're going to search YouTube for product videos, they're going to search Google for reviews. So you can run Google ads, you can run content marketing and that kind of stuff that ranks in search engines. The lower you are on the ladder, the less these people are going to search for your solution. So you have to go to them, for example, with ads on Facebook where you target people based on profile. Okay, so what are the rest of the slides? The rest of the slides are to how to scale acquisition. And yeah, how do I explain this quickly? So the main point of this slide is there's only 4 scalable ways of doing customer acquisition: paid acquisition, content, viral, and sales. All the rest, PR, friends and family, community engagement, speaking, organic social media, they're all very hard to scale. What makes a channel scalable? If you have high volume on the channel, so you can rely on the channel for a very long time to get customers from it, so you don't run out. And compounding. Compounding means this. Compounding means that every customer or every user you get from the channel generates an output that then you can then reinvest in the channel itself. For example, so I'm going to skip this part. Paid. If you have paid, you buy ads, you target them to a target audience, a percentage of your audience is going to buy, and then, so they're going to buy, so you have revenue, and then you make more money than you put in, so you can reinvest revenue in more ads. So it compounds and compounds and compounds. For content, basically, you have new users. Users can create content. The content then ranks in search or is being shared, and you then can reinvest it. Or if you write content yourself, your blog acquires a customer, you get revenue, you can reinvest revenue in creating more content. And the most obvious one is viral acquisition. You have a new user, the new user gets value, and they share the product experience. For example, they invite you to a Zoom call, they invite you in a Discord group, in a Slack group, or they pay you via PayPal, and you can reinvest it. Sales, you have a salesperson, the salesperson closes deals, you get revenue, you use the revenue to hire more salespeople. Scale, 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 it compounds. So, this is something I'm not going to discuss because it takes too long, but you can all read it if you get the slides. This is what path is most suitable for whom. So what conditions do you need to apply to? And what are the challenges? I'll keep that for a minute. So this is kind of like the last part. Scalability and time to ROI. So this is basically what are the most scalable channels. The channels that work for you are going to be determined by how much a customer pays you. So if you're a social app and your revenue per user is very low, you will have to rely on viral acquisition, like Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, because that's free. Users invite users, so you don't have to pay for it. Then to the right, you go to paid, because you can reinvest. Also, it helps if users invite other users on your paid. For example, Notion, they can acquire users via paid, and then the user they paid for is going to share Notion documents with other users. So let's say they spent €100 on acquiring the one user. If the one user shares with 5 other users, then you actually get 6 users for €100, which offsets your customer acquisition cost, so you actually spent 33. And the more you go to the right, the more you can afford to pump it into content, and the more you can afford to pay salespeople, the higher your profit margins are. So you can figure this, so you can use these slides to determine what's most likely to work for you. You can also experiment a lot with what works for you and optimize, or this is like commonsensical. You try to find someone who has a similar product to yours, tries to sell to a similar audience as yours, and you just grill them on what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And so that way you can basically bypass all of the experimentation, all of the insecurity, all the money you have to waste on it. And that's the last slide, and I took way too much of your time. And if you want to read, I try to write about this stuff. So if you need more context, you can go to, in the left bottom corner. I never thought I would actually shamelessly promote my own blog, but I feel like I basically failed you guys in not really delivering everything I wanted to deliver. Thank you.
So I think it deserves some applause. Well done, well done. So we have quite some questions on Slido, but what we're going to do, I think we're going to invite the guys for a panel, and we will take it as we go in the conversation together with the questions addressed for you. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because it really matches what we're going to talk next. So we're moving to the second part together with Gilles and 3 awesome gentlemen who I would like to invite here to join us on stage. So we do have Vytautas from Eskimi, we have Rytis from Nord Security, and Thomas from Oxy Labs. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us today. So we can give a round of applause. So, what if we start actually from you guys introducing yourself, because I think you can really do that best. And who are you? What are you doing? Why are you so awesome? And why you're here?
Hello. So I'm Ritis from Nord Security. I started to work for NordVPN, and then we started a couple more products. But basically what I'm responsible for our marketing efficiency. So overseeing most of activities what we do and looking how to optimize and scale our growth.
So you sponsor all the YouTube videos?
In a way, so.
So that's a way of profile targeting. So they figure out that the users who might want to use NordVPN watch certain YouTube channels, and then they sponsor them. Correct or not?
Yes.
Yes, thanks. Can you hear me? So my name is Thomas. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Oxylabs. And for those who don't know what Oxylabs is, we're a premium proxy infrastructure and scraping tools provider. We're a B2B SaaS company serving companies throughout different geographies. And we're actually, majority of our team is based in Lithuania, although we have a couple of offices, and I'm really eager to share our learnings, how we grew our company.
Hi, my name is Vitas. I'm the founder of Eskimi. Today we are an advertising technology platform working globally and helping brands to spend their marketing budgets more efficiently. I stressed the word today because previously Eskimi was a different product. In 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we founded Eskimi when it was a social networking product, and Lithuania still a lot of people know us as a social networking product. We kind of pivoted very hard from this product, and today we focus on the ad tech.
Okay, that's great. Welcome, guys. And Gilles, would you like to give some brief description also? What else do you do with the blog and your activities?
I think the presentation is basically what I do for clients, so strategically. And I try to cover the whole thing. So basically, top level, what is the most high impact thing to do in terms of scaling? And the focus is always scaling revenue. But strategically, it can be lots of things. It can be acquisition channels. It can be fixing your onboarding. It can be writing better landing pages, making better ads. And so I try to go from high strategic things to educating them on how to do it well. Because there's not a lot of people these days who can write good copy on a landing page. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to know that your landing page doesn't work, but to know how to fix it, how to write in a language that the customers understand is still another thing.
That's a good point. So maybe that's where we can jump into actually getting to know your growth journey. How did it all start? Because growth can start on many different levels, right? So, and all of you have really different both market experiences and go-to-market strategies. So maybe we can go through your history behind, especially maybe we can start from you, right? You started from B2C, then you transformed it with the product. You was one of the first social networks in Africa region, right? And then Facebook was later on just taking over. How was that? How did you reach that audience?
I'm super intrigued by that, actually.
Yeah, actually, me too. Like.
Yeah. So it happened almost by accident. I mean, we worked in Lithuanian market and we created a product. We of course experimented a lot, but you know, Africa and a couple of Southeast Asian markets just picked up the product, and I don't know, in 2 years we grew to around 26 million users that actively used our product. So that was exciting, and yeah, a bit of an accident. So kind of we had to follow and build a business after, and kind of this happened from 2010, 2012, 13. I think in some of the African markets we were the site #1, and only then later on kind of Facebook moved in, and the first 80-90% of our users didn't have a Facebook account. So that was, you know, that was the start of the Eskimi brand, and you know, and after that we kind of built a couple of other business lines, which I can tell the reasons later on why we have pivoted, but yeah, that was the start where kind of the company grew from just being a local company to a bit of a global scene.
Is there kind of a secret ingredient how to reach the African market?
Yeah, so B2B, I can tell you. B2C, I think that's one of the reasons why we kind of migrated, because again, having a social product, you have certain limitations, so you cannot really, if you're there in a couple of markets, it's very hard to kind of move away from them. So we had the ambition to grow, and then West Africa, East Africa, Indonesia, those markets were quite big. But then if you say, okay, I want to move to Singapore, it's impossible, or it's like close to impossible. So that's why, without having that kind of opportunity to grow further, we said, okay, let's invest into other business lines that were close in terms of the clients or the markets, and experimented with some other business lines, which then eventually worked.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide on the advertising direction? Like, why did you move there?
Yes, again, so we had clients buying ads on social, so that was so we had users buying virtual goods on social. That's why we created at the time a mobile billing solution, which was also quite a big business. And then we had clients buying ads, so we just created an advertising platform. So basically, that was a very logical step. It sounds easy now. It was, I don't know, 3 years of agony, because the product that we have now is number 38 or 39. So there's a lot of experimenting between. So it's I guess, and then the reason why is that the programmatic product that we created, we saw we cannot move away with our social, because we cannot drag the millions of users to the markets, but we can always create a technology and say, okay, if we want to go to start working in Europe, our current product allows us, right? So and the competence to sell ads, understand what ads are, innovate on them, we already had it. So that's why we expanded there.
So you saw some marginal users, or you had a niche on your social network, and then you basically jumped on it and went all in?
Yeah, from the social network, this billing platform was co-created, and then from the banks and telcos and agencies who are buying us for kind of paying us for ads, then kind of another spin-off. So basically, out of this, we had two businesses, which the current ad tech platform is just more successful.
Okay, that's impressive. And I can see that the guys were knocking their heads. Can you relate to this kind of testing, failing, testing, getting new product and changing the markets?
For sure. I mean, maybe from Oxylab's side, I'm not the best person to tell the founding story, right? Because I joined the company a bit later. But I can only retell the stories. But in a sense, Oxylabs was part of this Teso.net accelerator, was one of the ideas which founders also thought of, and I was kind of nearby on infrastructure or technical level, but really far away on the business level or business model level. And I think we could call ourselves lucky, but there's a good saying. I mean, the luck is when opportunity meets preparation, and I think that was the case when the founding team hadn't necessarily know how and understood how to monetize proxies and data centers and use that for specific use cases, which are now grew from a small niche to extremely large niche. So following to experimentations, there was a lot of experimentations in the growth, in early growth stages. But I think relating to Gilles' presentation as well, not only expanding but also nailing the niches is one of the, I think, first important strategies as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for NordSec as well, the guys who actually founded it previously, they were not pivoting the same kind of base product. They tried a bunch of different ones, over 20 of them, starting from different online e-shops and going to developing gaming apps and so on. And eventually they went to a VPN solution and overall cybersecurity field. So just being persistent, knowing what you want as your idea, and then just go and find the way to go.
Mm-hmm. It sounds so easy, right? Having an idea, going, testing, having an idea, failing.
It's always clear in hindsight.
Exactly. But that's why I have actually a question for you guys, for all of you, because we got on Slido people asking about the structure and the team, right? So we have a growth team, you might have marketing team, you have product team. How does that work in your case? How do you make them communicate? collaborate, and do we have to have separate marketing and growth teams, or actually it falls under one umbrella?
Well, in our case, we have a team that is called growth, but I suppose it's not what maybe in a very traditional way is recognized. But basically, in our company, we tend to do everything as we can in-house. So for marketing, we have like 250 people now working here. So we call ourselves like the biggest the digital agency here in Lithuania, working for a pretty much single product. And in early days, quite many people who were working for the marketing department, they were coming from agency side. And we basically knew that on the agency side, you get a very little attention as a client anyways, and the people need to constantly change the focus throughout the day to different clients and different purpose, so you cannot get into depth. And we wanted full attention and a really quick reaction, even though agencies might say, well, you get like dedicated people, still somebody in-house, and especially like on the early days, who can you call over the night at any time and say, well, there's a thing happening now in Australia while we are sleeping, but we need to react and monetize on that. So that was the power, how we managed to kick off really quickly and respond to the market in a really timely manner. So yeah, for us, even though we have a really big marketing community in-house, it really helps us in many ways.
How would you say that team is structured?
So just like a couple months ago, it was like 20 departments reporting to a CMO. So it was a bit hard to manage, even with like weekly meetings with them. So now we created another layer, joining some of the teams under like a second layer of management. So we could give a bit more attention, but like in the early days when I started over 4 years ago, there was in total like 150 people at the company. And in the marketing, most people would be doing 5 roles at least, and then they became like one channel managers or focusing on the one, and then they created their own teams under specific channels. So what was used to like one man with like different hats, so now under one hat there's plenty different people.
That's impressive. That's an army of marketing people, actually. What about the rest of the guys?
Well, in B2B, we have different buzzwords, so not growth, but go-to-market teams. So I think whoever you ask, there's going to be different buzzword, which is popular right now. But in a sense, because we're B2B, I mean, it's hard to talk about the growth without sales and marketing, right? So both need to be there in order for acquisition model to work. In our case, we are structured we have marketing teams, we have sales and new sales and account management teams, right? And those are then structured according to KPIs they need to achieve. And yeah, in most cases, because I believe a lot of marketing specialists are here, so we're focusing on kind of 3 key things when launching a B2B product, and especially on our brands. So one being content, right? So you need to start investing in that early, whatever you in the early stages of your idea, or still figuring out your product market fit, because it's a part of long game. You need to invest right now in order to see benefits after a year. The second thing is SEO. Again, also part of a longer game. You need to build that searchability, right? And even
so 95% of clicks on Google search are on page 1.
Yeah.
So if you start with SEO, it will probably take you a long time before you get on page 1, and it's very hard. It takes more than 6 months, probably more than a year. But once you get to page 1, you'll see your traffic like go up by multiple orders of magnitude.
Exactly, and I mean, before now it sounds obvious, especially in B2C, but in B2B, I mean, not everyone thought like Google is the answer, because like no one, you go to a client, a nice salesman goes to a client and, shows a nice paper and something like that. But right now, actually, majority of decision makers are searching for the solutions, right? So Google is becoming really important, or any other search engine is becoming a really important platform. And the last thing is the paid advertising, paid digital advertising, whether it's paid ads or affiliate marketing, whatever works for your model. But those are three things we always check that there would be from the start when we have a new brand or run our product.
Okay. And what about you?
Yeah, I think like I can just expand on the sales part of it. We kind of originally we started to build a sales team, and then when the sales team grew, we then specialized it. So I think again by KPIs or by client kind of preferences. So we have 100 people in our commercial team, and then they are specialized. Like we have lead research team, we have sales development team, we have BDM team, then regional managers as well, and then account management team. So kind of that team was like 2 years or 3 years ago. All of those things were done by one person. So like everything, like from the lead research to the campaign implementation, sometimes like so crazy. I cannot imagine. But now, so we were specialized it. And if I look and kind of would have to attribute any things to our success, so of course investing in the sales team was huge. Well, obvious, but a lot of founders actually who are not really salesy themselves, they don't really understand this. I prioritize this. And then the second one was to specialize the team when you have a lot of clients and you want to scale. And the most important thing, you want to predict the scaling. You don't want to say, okay, how many clients would we have next month? We don't know, right? So now we know, and that was the kind of the biggest benefit of actually specializing the team and scaling the team.
Okay, but you mentioned about you start as a one-man army, and then your team is growing and so on. But all of you guys are covering so many different markets. And then in the previous presentation, right, you were highlighting, Gilles, a lot about the language. So how does that work? We also got a question that one of our audience viewers was actually questioning. So many products, especially software, go into global competition with English only. What are your thoughts on this? Are you doing some localization, or English works for you everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, for us, for sure. And I mean, start from English, I think that covers a big part of, of the market. But for us, we saw, I mean, it really depends where you're focusing. But we saw that in order to capture big share of markets where there's a huge competition, need to go local, right? For us, it's Chinese market, which is where we spend a lot of actually efforts, and we have salespeople who are fluent in Chinese. We have Chinese people working for us. We have partners, marketing agencies helping us to understand their market, because it's totally different. The internet, as we understand, is totally different there. The way they market is different, and even right now, this week is a golden week in China, and it's like there's no sales or nothing happening there. So we're resting as well. So you need to adopt and understand your client and their needs, and localize everything from language to experience to advertising. An interesting thing we learned that when they put the discounts, right? So for us, it's usual to say when you get 20% discount and right minus 20%. For them, it's 80%. So, I mean, and you would never know, and until you start kind of figure out, talking with the local agency, saying, well, whatever you wrote here,
So
doesn't
they
make any
basically
sense
thought
for
you were
them.
giving an 80% discount.
Yeah, I don't know. They understand both ways, but bigger number always looks nice, shinier, nicer. So yeah.
Okay, any other cases?
For us, I think we localize differently. The product is in English, but I think part of our team, only 20% of the people are in Lithuania. So we always have local offices and the local support teams, local everything basically. So the product is still in English, which I mean we probably would need to move into the kind of the biggest languages, but if we have an office in I don't know, in some of the African market, we have a local office, and that covers the cultural thing, the language, the support, and the closeness. Cultural thing actually being a very big thing when you move around outside of Europe, then you have to have local people just to have a different, kind of that different understanding. So that's important.
Any more localized learnings or maybe fun stories to share?
Well, our case was that, as well, we started from English and then we moved to more other languages. First of all, we translated the content on the website, and eventually we moved to the apps, even though they are quite straightforward to use, just a couple buttons, but still people feel way more secure when they know what they are clicking. So that's in a way the way to go, I would say, but basically the English is the way to start, as anyways it's the population with the highest purchasing power, and if you are aiming for that, you are selling products straight away. So it was a good tactic, I would say, for us. And anyway, going to any country, so people who knows foreign language, I would say they tend to earn more, they have a higher purchasing power, so again, easier to start with that. And when you have initial traction in the market, then you can go with localization, translating either the web or the app or anything you need.
And from your experience, when it comes to localization, would you suggest having someone in-house doing that localization, or first going and testing if that's needed?
I would say the best case scenario would be to have someone from your team who is absolutely fluent in the language. We employed many different translation agencies and expensive ones with double, triple translations and so on, but maybe it's our case because the product is in a way quite technical. So for them to translate and actually understand what they need to say, it's quite difficult. And unless you start to get feedback from actual people in that market who understands the product, then you only realize that, okay, our translation maybe is not that great. So having someone who can at least proofread, maybe not do the translations for you, would be really a good case.
Okay. So imagine that I'm a founder right now, right? Based in Lithuania, and I want to start scaling and start building up my growth team, but how expensive it is? Do you need a big budget to start the experimentation, or it really depends on the industry? Do you have any?
So with ads, for example, you can experiment with very low budgets. So if you have a hunch of maybe I should target this market with this messaging, and it could be another language, another value proposition, anything that, basically the variables I showed, anything that makes you an idea of where you can expand into. You can just run an ad campaign like on Facebook or on Google, targeting some keywords or targeting a specific customer persona. You put €500 into it and you just see how many people click on it. And you compare it to the benchmarks of your other campaigns, and this is basically going to give you an idea if it's worth trying, if it's worth scaling up your experiment. And but actually before that, start from your users itself. Like in terms of if you want to decide what to localize in, I was working on a product once, and we had a lot of users from Japan who were using the English version, so that was the first language we decided to internationalize in.
Okay.
I think it really depends on the maturity of the product, where you're at which growth stage you are, because especially in B2B, I mean, find 3 clients or friends, whatever, who will test your product and give you direct feedback, and you don't need advertising budget for that. You actually just go there and talk with them and kind of learn, and they're the first free users from where you kind of start to build up and see if there's a product market fit. And I think that's kind of, launching some ads and stuff. I think I mean, you need to experiment. This is growth marketing and growth hacking, and overall is experimentation. So always start small and scale whatever works. So yeah.
So and we just got the question actually about the A/B testing, right? So could you please explain A/B testing in detail with real life examples? So we talk a lot about the testings, but what is A/B testing? Our audience is asking.
There's group A, there's group B, and you compare.
So here's one example. So there's this nonprofit that is called Charity Water, where you can donate to sponsor development for democratizing, globalizing access to drinkable water. and they have this donation page, which has a pre-filled amount. So the original version had $30 on it, and the average donation size that came from that page, I think was like $35 or something. So that's version A. That's the version you have. And then you have an idea. It's like, what if we increase the suggested donation amount? Is it going to increase the donations? So version B became the same page, but instead of pre-filling $30 or euro, I don't remember, they put 60. And the average donation size went up to 55. Now, to be sure, like the average donation size going up isn't necessarily better because the number of donations may be lower, but it was actually like quite the same. So version A, version B, what works better, essentially.
That's a really good example, actually. And talking about the growth hacking and all the marketing channels, right? So for all the testings and campaigns, so Facebook is one of the major players in the market, of course, big budgets, audience and everything. And we've got this question as a follow-up from your presentation, actually, Gilles. So if Facebook is full of alt-white people, is it still an important channel?
That was unfortunately, that didn't come out quite right.
Is it still a channel for startup marketing teams to keep using, since the audience is changing, the trends, as you mentioned as well, right? It's moving TikTok, Instagram, and...
But the thing is, like, Instagram is also Facebook. So if you want to reach them, you're not sure if they're on Facebook itself, you just target Instagram and you see if the performance is better, and then you turn Facebook off. But yeah, it was unfortunate the way it came out, because that's like my impression, but in lots of other countries, Facebook is still it wildly depends also on the local country, local culture, what age groups are using what.
Great answer, actually. So I have one more question for you to ask now. Since you're all growing a lot and it's becoming more strategic and operational, what can prevent you from growth hacking? If there is anything what could prevent.
I think maybe figuring out the kind of business model which is scalable, right? So, I mean, I previously worked in service business and, consulting, management consulting, and I mean, you cannot scale that business if you don't have people, because it's, it's a service. You need to.
It's like the hairdresser. You can only sell as much as consultants you have, and you sell. So if you have 10 consultants, they have 8 hours in a day, so you can sell 80 hours in a day of service per day.
So you can look at those cohorts and the retentions as long as you want, but at the end, I mean, if you cannot scale your operations quickly or provide the supply of the software or product you're selling, I mean, it's impossible. So that's why in early stages, when they're usually founders or specialist experts, they want to do something which is interesting for them, or they want to build their amazing products, but they often forgot that you need to figure out how to sell that in order to drive that growth and support that growth. So yeah, I think that was one thing, is just kind of forgetting the business model and not thinking how to scale it.
I don't think it happens with small companies, but I mean, certainly we have made those mistakes. Basically, is that you instead of doing MVP, instead of testing a business model or a product on a small scale, you say, oh, I believe in it, let's do this full scale, hire a team, and then after 1 year and spending $500,000, like, yeah, it didn't work. So I think, I mean, these
it's
mistakes
like
still, well, not that bad, but yeah. So it's I think companies still make those mistakes, and gut feeling that doesn't always work. I mean, the market tells you the truth, and you have to kind of test it in the market and then follow that feedback.
But do you have any advice how long that test should last? For example, yes, we can do a lot of testing, right? And then we can have a growth strategy. We can have growth hacks. We can do fun things that makes your company grow. So how do you find that balance? And is there a balance?
I think this is the most difficult question, I think, for founders, because this is the question is when to pivot, right? So when should we pivot from what we have or what we thought works or we thought that the market needs, and to something different? And I think it really depends on the team and situation, right? So in a sense, if there's a growth, if there's traction, I think there's not even a question. I mean, there's such a significant traction from the market that you're just trying to support the demand of what you already kind of figure out that sort of works and try to tweak it. So there's no question, should we stop it or not?
The data will tell you, like that's what I meant with make sure you have retention first. Like if your retention curve flattens, if you have actually retention, you can scale it. But if people are all leaving your product after 2 weeks, every scaling effort you do is basically just scaling your losses. And another interesting thing here is from you, because like you were in the social media market, you had 26 million users, but I guess you kind of understood that social network is in a way is like a winner takes all market. So because Facebook was so huge, you probably thought, I'm probably gonna start losing my users to Facebook because the social gravitational pull, if you want to call it that way, the network effects are just way stronger. And so then you make the strategic decision to focus on something else where you have more upside potential.
And I would add the market size. I mean, sometimes you can start a business in a market that is either small or not existing or shrinking. And then, our idea to start this ad tech company focusing on the mobile first markets actually helped us a lot, because then, when we did that, Europe was not mobile first. And then, Europe came to be mobile first after, a couple of years. So we kind of rode the wave, and the market was growing, and then naturally it forgives you a lot of mistakes. So always before starting any business, check if the market is growing. I mean, because otherwise it can be really tough to sustain.
And okay, so to check if the market is growing. So we have a question from Tomasz. So what go-to-marketing strategies could you suggest for a startup business, right? You all mentioned that you tried quite different product ideas before you actually pivot, right, with Nord Security as well. So how to go to that market? Do you have some specific,
Where your users are. So think of the slide with the Revolut users, or another example that I didn't give was, that I wanted to give but didn't have time for, is, do you guys know Webflow?
Yeah.
No-code website builder. And about 3 years ago, I got a lot of referrals from friends who said it was a really great tool and I should start using it. And all of those friends were developers. So Webflow has been around since 2012, and they focused on developers first, had product market fit with those, and then started expanding the product to also be very useful for marketers, designers. And today they have landing pages for content teams because they have a CMS, for e-commerce, for designers, for developers, for freelancers. All of them particularly proposing Webflow as a solution for what those users need. And this those are your audiences, and then you just think like, how can I reach those? And it's like, what do they search in Google? So do Google ads, or run content, or run YouTube ads, or sponsor YouTube. So for NordVPN, it's what YouTube channels are they watching? And I'm actually like, I'm fascinated by that, because it's like out of every 10 YouTube videos I watch, I think 3 of them have VPN ads in them. So I think I'm kind of wondering, isn't it getting saturated in a way? And also like the deals are always, it's like, 3 months for free, and then the VPNs try to top each other. And I think I'm fascinated by how do you keep track of what your competitors are running and all that stuff?
The data tells you the truth, and back in the days when we started with influencers, we started really at small scale. Our whole marketing was based on the idea, when we invest $1, we want $1.15 back, and we want it straight away. So we weren't funded from any investors, so self-funded company. So we had to grow efficiently. We allowed our teams to test a lot, but they always knew that their total ROI should always be 115 or around that, so we could grow. So if more they make money, the more tests they can run as well. So in that way, we managed to grow to this level. Now, of course, the efficiency is in a way lower, but at scale, you can allow yourself way bigger tests, even to try. With some, you couldn't even enter at the beginning. So nowadays, it's still efficient channel. Of course, it's getting very saturated. We were, I would say, one of the first VPNs to go really big scale into influencers. many believed it's more like a branding channel, awareness channel, but not performance. But our mindset is always do the performance. We don't care about the branding. We want performance straight away, and the branding is nice effect as a side effect. So with that mindset, we simply look for the right influencers that can promote our product.
Performance first, right? So we actually got a question for you as well. I will maybe try to read it out. Some of them already was covered, but maybe we'll have some add up to start, because everyone are very curious about the beginning, and maybe if you started from one channel, if there is some kind of, because you didn't go straight from the influencers, most probably, right? So the question says, like, would love to hear more thoughts from Nord Security on the US market. Nord is big there, how we launched, what they did to grow, etc.
Maybe competitors are asking, no?
Could be. Yeah, so actually the US wasn't the like a first or a breakthrough market for us. Of course, it's the biggest market, but naturally we started with usual suspects, so paid search, organic, to build up something over there. And luckily, at the very beginning, we as well tried to be really friendly with news media community. So we were trying to give them a lot of tech support, comment on different happenings around the world on like security topics. And quite some years ago in Australia, there was one law introduced on users' privacy. And big medias over there reach out to us to comment on those topics, and that's how we got into eyes of big tech medias and in the eyes of potential customers. So it exploded quite well, and then we as well were able to invest those money into traditional marketing channels where you have to pay. So sometimes the growth might be not visible or not that straightforward at the beginning, but being nice with people, being helpful, that seems to always pay off. You just need to wait enough. So yeah, US was basically a lot of performance marketing cases. So doing the paid ads, working with tech medias, helping them to review our product, commenting, giving them early releases of the products, so they would have early access to what just will be published at some time. Visiting them as well, meeting in person, creating relationships, that helps you quite a lot. So yeah, and then going and not being afraid to invest, not being afraid to fail, but just try to understand the failure quite fast and stop repeating that. And then yeah, that how you scale. That's when we afterwards started to do the TV ads. Of course, for many it seems like the most expensive channel in a way, but actually it's not. We managed to find an agency who did TV ads for us on a CPA basis even. So you just need to always be looking for, pitching the ways how to make money for the others as well, and you always find a way. So the TV is not that expensive if you actually find the ways how to approach it.
To evaluate search as a channel, just look at the keywords and how much search volume is on there. So and then you can run Google ads on them. It will tell you how much you will have to pay per click, project it, and it will, in terms of trying to rank on it with content, it will have an indicator for keyword difficulty, which tells you how much competition there is on the keyword. And if you have a list of keywords, let's say the 20 ones that are closest to expressing interest in a product like yours, for example, VPN, yeah, basically the keyword volume tells you the size of the market, or gives you a clear indication and tells you whether it's worth experimenting with.
That's a great answer. So going back a bit to the users, so we had the superstar users, right, who loves your product and you don't have really to do much to kind of keep them being your clients, and we had those marginal users, and we've got this actually concern. So focusing on marginal users, right? That seems like a way to focus on haters instead of these who really enjoy the product. How to find the right balance here? Are they really haters?
I didn't really have haters in my mind when I was making that slide. I don't think haters will use your products. So marginal users just, they sign up, and so they all, I don't see why haters would sign up for your products. And yeah, they try, like, so they sign up for a reason. So something in your marketing appealed to them. They thought, okay, this can be valuable for me. You gave them a reason to sign up, and then they just failed to, like, the product failed to deliver on the expectations. So maybe they had a wrong expectation. Maybe the UX was very confusing. But so you can see a marginal user basically from your data analytics who signed up, who tried a couple of things, and then never came back. Because that's a user who came there, he or she wanted something and didn't get it.
I mean, I think in B2B segment, the marginal users, as you define them, I think it rarely exists, because usually it's not an impulsive buy, right? It's a calculated purchase.
Yeah, if you like sales, there's a lot of like upfront. There's a lot of like thinking and negotiating, and there's like it's usually for products that are expensive, that have like they need to be configured in a certain way or customized even. So you basically overcome those barriers in the sales cycle up front, because you talk to each other and you align expectations.
Exactly. Before they buy, there's usually a testing stage, right? So demos and something like that. So and that's where a lot of B2B companies right now are focusing, is like how to help our clients, potential clients, to reach that aha moment. It's like, oh, that's what you're doing, and that's how it's going to help me. So yeah.
Okay, and if we would go back to the beginning of your journey of growth kind of phase, would it be anything you would be doing different? Or maybe something you really learned and you would, if now you look back, oh, I could have done maybe this part.
I can share regarding the pivot, right? So when you look back, of course, that was 10 years ago. Now you can see that, in terms of the market size and everything, we could have made decisions faster. So, if you see that something is not working, like, it's good to kind of persevere, but have a limit to it. I guess that's because then you can work on the idea that doesn't really have a future for too long. So at least that's the kind of insight that I have when I look back, and it worked for us, but it cannot work all the time if you would not find that successful pivot or whatever.
I mean, I think I'm not sure it's doing differently, but I think the biggest hack is hiring the right people at the right time. I mean, the talent is the biggest hack. I mean, someone needs to do those experimentations. Someone needs to understand the client, and I mean, finding people who are have grit and perseverance to test it, to try it out, never to give up, and find those ways is, I think, the recommendation I would give. I know it's easier to say than to do, but always pay attention who you're hiring, because at the different stage of the company, different type of people will be needed with different profiles, and that's very important when we start a new company.
That's a really great advice. Talent is an asset. And actually, coming now to this different hybrid model of work, how did you react to these changes in the work environment? Did it change the way you work? Did you started going more remote and hiring maybe talents? Because the talent will also open up right now, right? So what is actually update on this side?
Yeah, we went fully remote. So we were kind of remote before, having a lot of offices and people not in one place. But basically, I think in the first couple of months in the pandemics, we just said, like, okay, like, work from anywhere all the time, forever. Well, we'll see about that, but I mean, like, at least it works for us now. So yeah, office is empty. People still come, and we still have offices, but we have just said that this is a rule, which creates a lot of other challenges in terms of being close to your team and having that team bonding and so on. But in terms of the results, it works for us, and that has definitely opened up a lot of the opportunities to scale the team. Before that, when we were saying, okay, we need a person, this role, we were always assigning a country. Now we say this role anywhere, basically. And that really helps, even for senior roles, to just have a global market to choose from. It's much easier, and I would always have to encourage people to think like this. I mean, why do we need a person in Lithuania when we can hire a person in the market with this just organically much more experience on this topic, growth marketing, for example, right? So that really, you have to sometimes push. My friends or some other companies, they are afraid to go out, and like, how do we hire people? These are different cultures, different everything. Yeah, it's just, I think learn by doing, but the reward is actually much bigger, because yeah, it's like Lithuania is just so tiny, it's impossible. So yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, from Oxylab side is when pandemic started, we were like 120 people or something. So at that moment, it was not that difficult to hire or something. But now we're more than 300 people, and now we're feeling pains of that's there's significantly more people coming in with expectations to have this hybrid work. And of course, we need to adapt to the market, but at the same time, we need to create this kind of capabilities and toolkits for managers to work, for managers and for people to work in those environments. It's what we learn is that it cannot be 50-50. So you either go remotely or go remotely first, or go office first. If you do 50-50, it's always bad connections and microphones not working, everyone's forgetting to unmute and other stuff. So
Rytis, do you have any comments on that?
Well, so for us it as well opened eyes, at least for some of the teams that was focusing primarily on like local market hiring. For myself personally, I oversee our country managers department, so it was like organic for me to hire internationally. And throughout this pandemic, in the last like 2 years, we hired around, I don't know, maybe 8 people, which I never saw in person yet. And somehow it works. We learned how to onboard, how to successfully start working with them. And now when we are allowed to like travel, it's really interesting to see someone after like a year and a half, while you was on a weekly meetings with him, and now you see someone in person. Well, that's quite a different experience. And what another thing we learned, that with international hires, especially for a high positions, it's always good to meet in person as well before you hire. So it's like a quite important decisions that you are making, and the real life experience with that people is really important. You can fail over there as well.
Yeah. Being human and having that connection, right? So, gentlemen, it's been great having you here today, but we're really running out of time. But before we close, I would like to ask you right now just to give an advice. Maybe it can be 2 advices for all the startup founders and team members. So today we learned and heard a lot of different cases and stories about growth hacking, tactics, and so on. So what would be the first thing everyone should do tomorrow if they want to grow? How can they start their growth journey? What would be your it can be research, it can be testing it.
I'm going to repeat the advice on my last slides. Find someone who has experience in the markets that you're trying to grow in, because it can save you a lot of time. Yeah, it's very commonsensical, and a lot of people think of doing it. It's easy to just go by yourself and do all the testing, but somebody already did it before you, and maybe they might be willing to help you, and it's actually information worth paying for.
I would say have a sales capability. Different products require different sales processes, either it's online or offline, but But yeah, I see like half of the businesses which founders are not are more like product people or tech people. They kind of neglect that part of it, and I mean without marketing, without sales, you cannot grow. So
Yeah, I'll repeat probably myself, but yeah, find the people who are as excited about this product as you are, and I mean, don't be afraid to pivot, right? So it's you have a great idea. If it doesn't work out, oh well, let's move on.
And from Nord experience, just give a really clear target. Be efficient on each dollar you spend, and so you have dollars to pay next month.
Very wise advices. So thank you, Rytis, thank you, Thomas, thank you, Vytautas, thank you, Gilles, for being here today and sharing your wisdom with our audience, both physically and virtually, which is really cool, this new hybrid setup we're having right now. And for everyone who are here today with us, make sure you follow Tesonet on their social media channels to get the latest updates about upcoming talks and events focused actually on the founders' growth and development. And also, if you would like to rewatch this panel, it will be available on the YouTube channel. And right now, for everyone who are here, we would like to invite you for some beers and snacks. And for the ones who joined us virtually, thank you for being here today with us. And good luck with your growth hacking.